There is a motto that we have of St. Francis, and I like to use this every once in a while when I talk about it. It's that lovely statue in People's Gardens of Francis and the bird bath. That's not who really Francis was. Francis was a much more complex and deep and profound individual. Francis wanted to penetrate the mystery of Christ's love for sinful humanity. Why would God empty himself, take on our human nature and suffer all the things that we do, joys, happiness, sorrow, death itself, so that someone else might have life? How do you understand that? What's the meaning of that? What's the meaning of love in the context of that? And so Father Paul, in his imitation of Francis, is really in his imitation of imitating Christ. And it was based on the fundamental understanding that Francis came to as an insight of one who is willing to offer their life for the life of someone else.
When I think of Father Paul, I think of something that Pope Francis said recently. He said, if you priests are to be good shepherds, you must have the odor of the sheep on you. Now, to me, that's very important because that's closeness and understanding the pain and the plight of many who are without, and especially in their spirits.
The ministry started many years ago in the early 80s when the friars noticed that people coming on retreat, some of them had AIDS. And they came on retreat, but they had special needs other than the other retreatants. Their needs weren't being met. So we said, why don't we have a retreat just for people with AIDS? And we did. And on the first retreat, there was just 14 people. And as one beautiful young lady said, this is magic. I can be myself. I can talk about my illness. I can talk about my life, and no one's condemning me. So they formed a support group called Do Not Fear to Hope. And that's been going for over 25 years now. This sounds very simplistic, but never judge a book by its cover. I've met some of the most wonderful, spiritual, holy people in the Do Not Fear to Hope group. They found forgiveness, they found acceptance, they found comfort, they found mercy, they found God.
Back in the early 1900s, Route 9 ran from New York City to Albany. There were a lot of migrant workers that came up and down looking for work. A lot of the men used to stop at the convent to help the sisters do things, and sisters would feed them. So this one day, a gentleman came to the sisters and said, I need some help. She said, what? He said, I was working on the New York City aqueduct to take more water into the city, and they ran out of money. And he said, I have no place to go, can you put me up? And he said, no, not here, but go up to the top of the mountain and talk to Father Paul. And he spoke to Father Paul and told him his story, and Father Paul said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll give you room and board if you help me around the mountain. And that was the first Brother Christopher that came. Christopher means one who bears Christ. That gentleman told somebody that told somebody that told somebody, and it became a shelter for homeless men. And after that, we started to notice the incidence of the use of alcohol primarily then, and we started to treat them. We're one of the first places that ever put in the AA meetings here in New York State.
To watch the friars see us come in at a time of need, and to watch us walk out of men, knowing that we deserve the love and respect, that's just always a great feeling.
The friars that were stationed here, and the one sister is Sister Kathleen Ryan, they gave of their time and their talent constantly. Brother George Clay, that's up there, sat at that front desk for years. Brother Joe Marie was a big part in the healing retreats that are held up at the Graymoor Spiritual Life Center.
The friars have inspired me by giving me an example that there's actually goodness out there, and it's not all about darkness, and it's not all about getting over on everything or taking advantage of everything that I possibly can, that I can give and help the next person to help myself as well.
I think Franciscan spirituality is seeing and focusing on a need and not being afraid to go out and try to help and make something good out of it, for the help of mankind.
I think Father Paul was very inspired by Francis in his outreach to the poor, to the marginalized, to the pushed away, to those people who didn't have a voice, and that filled Father Paul to do the same.
I was speaking just last week to a Buddhist in Toronto, and I had occasion to tell him I am a Franciscan. Oh my, he said, you are a Franciscan? My God, he said, you have no idea the degree to which St. Francis is respected in Buddhism in India. I mean, there's millions and millions of people who are inspired by Francis. Well, I have to tell you, I was taken aback by that. I didn't know it. Dialogue is about constructive listening to the other. What's the other's heartbeat about? What's so essential about being a Buddhist? Or what's so essential about being a faithful Muslim? What is it? Tell me. Tell me so I can listen. Let me tell you about this pilgrimage that we put together, myself, a rabbi, and an imam, and the executive director of the Canadian Council of Churches. There were 4 of us who planned it. There was about 50 people. We had a whole busload of people. We were almost equally divided in terms of number of Jews, number of Muslims, number of Christians. And it was interesting because when we were in Jerusalem, people were talking about the Christians, Muslims, and Jews who've come from Canada on a pilgrimage. They just could hardly believe that you could get that kind of a composition of people and bring them together where they eat together and they talk together and they visit their holy places together, and well, they just thought that was a wonderful, wonderful experience. We cannot live in society today in the absence of dialogue.
Many people come to Graymoor for spiritual direction, for confession. Why do they come here? Believe me, Graymoor is difficult to get to. There's no bus service, there's no train close by. But thousands of people come here every year. And it's my firm belief that our founders, Father Paul and Mother Lorena, who founded the Society of the Atonement, anointed this mountain. Isn't it strange that we don't call it the Holy Mountain of Friars? The people who come here gave it that name.
For me, being a Franciscan Friar of the Atonement means that I know I come from love and I go to love, and everything in between in my years of growing is all transformation, allowing God to do something new in my heart that will make a difference as well to other people around me.
Being a Franciscan Friar of the Atonement for me means I need to come to know who I am in my personhood. I need to be reconciled to myself and accept who I am as a human being before I can reach out to the other. And I think that's the whole crux of our charism of atonement, to be at one.
Father Paul, in his understanding of what it meant to be a Franciscan, was that he saw how Francis learned how to follow Christ. He knew what he had to do. He had to embrace the divisions of the church so that those divisions would be healed. He had to embrace the homeless so that they could find the warmth of love by nothing that they did, nothing that they could do, but for who they were. And so he took in people from the street. He welcomed them as he would welcome Christ. Love is a way of being in the world. It's a way of embracing in the world. It's a way of letting go. It goes to a real acceptance of the other as the other, and to see that as God's giftedness. That is, to love as Jesus loves.